All right, let's get into a story with a title that seriously makes you stop and think. 2 months after the divorce, I was shocked to see my wife wandering in a hospital. Right away, you know this is going to be a story that starts with a huge gut punch of a mystery. So the whole thing kicks off with this one single devastating moment. Our narrator, Arjun, spots his ex wife, Maya, in a hospital corridor, and his entire world just grinds to a halt. You know that feeling when your heart just shatters? Well, that's the feeling we're here to understand. And look, this is way more than just a story about a breakup. It's really about the silent, slow collapse of a marriage. It's about the incredible power of secrets and what happens when a truth that's been buried for so long finally comes to light. And that's really the question, isn't it? How does a marriage end up like this, with one person completely transformed physically and emotionally in a hospital and the other totally clueless? To figure that out, we've got to rewind. Okay, so first things first, we need to dive into the backstory because the end of this marriage wasn't some sudden explosion. No, it was a silent collapse that was happening for years, long before anyone signed any divorce papers. So let's meet Arjun and Maya. From the outside looking in, you'd think their 5 year marriage was, well, peaceful, stable even. But that picture perfect image, it was incredibly fragile. This timeline really maps out the tragedy. The first few years, everything seems stable. They're building a life. But then they hit this absolutely devastating turning point: two miscarriages. And this is where you see how grief, when it's not dealt with, can become like a poison in a relationship. That trauma didn't pull them together. Instead, it just carved out this huge, silent gap between them that defined their last 2 years. So, on the surface, you've got this warm, comforting marriage. But what was really going on inside their home? Something else entirely. It was cold, cracked, dying, really. Their own home had become this place of just complete and utter exhaustion. I mean, listen to this from Arjun. Instead of warmth, I was greeted by silence and heavy sighs. I felt drained. Just think about that for a second. Coming home felt so draining that he started making excuses just to stay out later. He was basically running away from his own life just to get a break from the suffocating silence. So, all this quiet suffering, you just know it can't last forever, right? Something has to give. And that brings us to the breaking point, which, believe it or not, was a really quiet, almost anticlimactic end. And this is how it ended. Not with some big dramatic explosion, but with four simple, quiet words. After another argument that just left them both tired, Arjun just says it. By this point, all the fight had just gone. And Maya's response, wow, it's just so heartbreaking because she's already resigned to it. There's no fight, no begging, just this soft acceptance. It's the sound of someone who knew deep down that this day was coming for a long, long time. The actual act of signing the papers was just a formality. The really telling part is the total lack of emotion. No crying, no screaming. It was like they had both been mentally rehearsing this moment for years. The marriage was already gone. This was just the paperwork. So, what happens after the divorce is final? Well, now we shift to the aftermath, and we find Arjun just living his life completely on autopilot. His new life is just this mechanical routine. He goes to work, he drinks with friends, he watches movies by himself. He's just going through the motions. But his subconscious mind, it knows something's wrong. He's having these nightmares, waking up calling out Maya's name. It's a huge sign that he knows on some level that things are far from resolved. And this right here is a textbook case of denial. The fact that he has to convince himself he did the right thing, that's a massive red flag. It tells you that deep, deep down, he suspects he's missing a really important piece of the puzzle. And this goes on for 2 months, 2 whole months of this shadow life. He's not really living, he's just existing. And it's at the end of these 2 months that everything is about to change. And that brings us right back to where we started. Back to that hospital corridor. Back to the exact moment that his carefully built wall of denial comes crashing down around him. He sees her and he says her hair, which she always kept long, is now strangely short. Her face is pale and thin. Her eyes are sunken and lifeless. The details are just chilling because this isn't the Maya he knew. This is clearly someone who has been through something absolutely awful. And boom, his mind just starts racing. The first question that hits him, what on earth happened to her? The change is so drastic, it can only mean one thing. Something terrible has happened. And then that shock immediately turns into confusion. Why didn't anyone tell me? He was her husband for 5 years. How could he have been so completely shut out? And then the most haunting question of all hits him. Standing there in this cold, empty hospital corridor, why is she alone? Where is her family? Where are her friends? Why is she going through this nightmare by herself? And that's where the story leaves us, right on the edge of a devastating truth. Arjun is about to find out what was really going on underneath all that silence in their marriage. It's just a powerful reminder that sometimes the things we don't say are so much more destructive than any argument ever could be. The real question isn't just what the secret is, it's how a truth that big could stay hidden right there in plain sight.